Good evening, Dolphins fans. Welcome to another episode of On the FinSide here with Kat and Paul. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. I'm Brian Cat NFL. Paul is fanatic_pick on Twitter. It is officially NFL draft season. We've got the Senior Bowl coming up here this upcoming week for the practices and weekend for the game. It's going to be a slow burn as far as coverage is concerned here. Chugging along here. We're going to have our top 10 Dolphins specific board here today. And as we continue to go along, we'll do the Senior Bowl next week and position by position breakdowns as we continue to go along here, Paul. So looking at some news though before that here, the Dolphins offensive coordinator search continues. It looks like a couple names are out of the running here. Elliott, the Clemson offensive coordinator, has been out for a little while. Marshall, the 49ers run game coordinator, is also out, has been for a little bit too. It looks like Matt Canada, the Steelers quarterback coach, has not officially been promoted, might still be in the running. Other than that, it seems like George Godsey, Eric Studsville, and Pep Hamilton are the three names right now. I can't help but think, when you look at the offensive coordinator spot, they've got to be waiting for somebody here among the last four teams. That's the only explanation to me here.
I think so. You've got a number of guys left at this point. It could get real interesting. Kafka's a name that keeps coming up in my head, and I know a lot of Dolphins fans keep talking about. But it's very weird that it's been a no news type scenario with this one.
Yeah, and I think it's been telling on that too. And with coordinators, position coaches, I always say I don't know specifically who I like because it's so much unknown, but I know who I don't like, and I don't want Pep Hamilton as the offensive coordinator. Way too conservative. I do hope it is somebody else, and I hope it is an unknown and somebody with a lot of great ideas. But also on the coaching front too, a little bit of a surprise. The Dolphins are going to have their third offensive line coach in 3 years. Lemuel, I know I butchered that name, Jean-Pierre, who was the Dolphins' assistant offensive line coach last year to Steve Marshall. Steve Marshall fired, and my first reaction was, number one, I'm a little surprised with the Steve Marshall firing, and Jean-Pierre, talking about somebody who's 33 years old moving into that offensive line spot. So third coach in 3 years. Hey, I'm willing to see what goes on here, but I really hope we don't get to next year and the Dolphins have their fourth offensive line coach in 4 years.
Yeah, no, or or turn over the offensive coordinator position yet again. I really want some stability there. I don't want a 1-year rental. I don't want to talk somebody out of retirement to come be conservative for us, just like they used to run it back in 1942. I just
It's a pretty good impression there.
That's my Chan Gailey right there. So
we're very good, very good. I think it was older than 1942, but
it's
anyway.
pudding day. It's at the home. So that's why Gailey quit. He didn't want to miss out on pudding day.
Yeah.
But no, I really want to see some stability, especially given that we have the young quarterback right now in the moment.
You bet. And finally, big congratulations here to Dan Campbell, the new head coach of the Detroit Lions. He was the Dolphins interim coach in 2015. I hope he does really well for them. We met him in Miami, and what a presence, 6'7", built like a brick, what house back then. I really think he needs an offense coordinator and a defensive coordinator because he's not the headiest guy. He is a leader of men. So I hope he does well there and gets a couple of good coordinators there with Detroit.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if the team doesn't do well, he's gonna, as he put it in his news conference today, chew somebody's kneecaps off. We're in a room with a bunch of bloggers and YouTubers and podcasters and you name it, and I felt like we could go out and win a football game for him with him behind us. So I can only imagine with actual athletes out there what he's going to be. We saw a taste of it in Miami, the fact that the locker room lined up behind him when Steve Ross decided to go with the dreaded Adam Gase. Um, yeah, it's shades of what could have been. Now there's another coach that I really want to see if Flores gets in a fight with, how that goes down. I love Flores, but I think my money's on Dan in that one.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. Paul, with draft season approaching now, we're going to do our top 10 board for the Dolphins. And this is a top 10 Miami Dolphins specific board that they pick third and 18th in the first round, as well as 35th and 50th in the second round. And they have a third round pick, a fourth round pick, and I would have to check to see fifth, sixth, seventh round. But you get the picture here. The Dolphins have 4 of the top 50 picks in the NFL draft. And so there's a lot of creativity. And anytime I post anything with the draft, people respond of, this is what I would do. And I don't really see any scenarios that I dislike when people send those to me. I mean, there are so many different options here for the Dolphins.
There really are. I mean, the one thing I don't like is, and just to quiet our chat a little bit on this topic, I hate seeing the Deshaun Watson trade packages at this point. Most of them are horrific and brutal. Let's. We've talked a little bit about Watson. We'll talk more about it when there's news. But as far as the draft itself goes, I like staying pat. I like trading down. I like 99% of the moves that I see out there. It's very rare that there's a move that I don't like that I've seen.
The Dolphins would have to try really hard to piss me off in the draft here or in free agency. I mean, they've got money, they've got draft picks. So, Paul, let's take a look at our top 10 Dolphins board here. So I'm going to throw it to you for your 10th guy. And I would imagine it probably wasn't easy to separate, the last couple of guys on your list here.
It wasn't. And part of that's the cesspool that there is in between the in that middle area of guys that are really talented, guys that are here in the first round, and I like, but I don't like for Miami guys. I like guys like Kwity Paye, but like you and I have talked about, they're not really the right fit for the Dolphins. So for me, I went with the video game highlight reel, even though I'd prefer it be down towards the bottom half of the first round, and that's Kadarius Toney. What he could bring to this Dolphins offense and special teams unit, just out of this world. He's got moves that just don't belong on a wide receiver, and they just work. The guy gets open, catches everything, and really rakes up some yards after the catch. So Kadarius was an easy pick for me. He's a favorite of mine in this draft.
So if the Dolphins were picking 10th in the draft here instead of third, Toney would be somebody that you would consider that high.
I would hate it at 10, but there's not anybody after probably my top 7 that I would want at 10th.
Yeah, you and I are on the exact same page because I've got 7 or 8 guys that, and then to say that it's a drop off at this point doesn't even scratch the surface. So you and I are definitely thinking on the same terms there. My 10th guy is Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, the linebacker from Notre Dame. Now,
I like it.
At first, I kept him off this list because, look, this guy's 6'1", 216 pounds, and we also have a defense here with Jerome Baker, who's 200, 6'1", 6'2", 220 pounds as well. I think this pick would give the Dolphins the opportunity, if they were able to get him, say, at 18, if he fell down to that spot, to be very, very creative. He is incredibly fast and incredibly violent off the edge, and somebody that plays with great anticipation. And throughout the game, if you watch Notre Dame, he can legitimately play slot cornerback. And I don't mean play it just Isaiah Simmons play slot cornerback like we talked about last year. He can legitimately make a difference. He flies off the edge, and he can be moved all over the football field. I think it could give the Dolphins a chance to really be creative in bringing 4 big guys to the quarterback and dropping 7. He's somebody that could also chase down Josh Allen in the open field, and that's the player that you've got to beat here. And my number 9 player is offensive tackle Rashawn Slater from Northwestern. He's somebody that can play all five positions on the offensive line. Every time I watch him, the name Zach Martin screams out to me. Maybe it's the number 70 on his jersey. Maybe that he played tackle, but he can also play guard. And a lot of people think he can play center. But I look at scheme versatility, contact balance, just a lot of great tape on this guy. And if you look back in 2019, before he opted out of the 2020 season, he only allowed five pressures, according to PFF, in the entire 2019 season. Also went up against Chase Young of Ohio State and not only held his own, but a lot of people think got the better of that matchup, which very few people can say. Who's your number 9?
My number 9 is, and again, it's somebody I would hate to take at number 10 overall, number 9 overall, but with that back half of the first round, if Miami's there, I would love, 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 and adore. And this is a guy I talked about last year when I thought he was going to come out in the draft, and that's defensive end Carlos Basham from Wake Forest. He's a guy that does special things. He can bend the edge and get after the quarterback. He can go ahead and he can set the edge in the run game. And then, given the way that the NFL is moving, given the way that football in general is moving, it's moving towards a read option scenario. More teams are running it. You need somebody that not only can get after the passer, but can also kind of learn how to sit down and defend both pathways as far as that read option goes. And Carlos Basham does it in a way I have not seen from any other player, and would be a perfect fit in this Dolphins defense.
Yeah.
He's a monster out there.
Yeah, and my ninth. So you've got Carlos Basham as your ninth there. Let's go back to you for number 8.
Back to me for number 8. Whew. All right. This is the one that Dolphins fans are going to love, even though, again, this is my last guy that I wouldn't take in the top 10 if I could help it. I'd take him if I had to, gun to head, but again, it's my one running back that I've got on this list, and that's Najee Harris. He's such a great fit. The relationship he and Tua have, he's a bigger back. He can run between the tackles. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. And the way he would complement guys like Myles Gaskin and Savon Ahmed in Miami's backfield as well, the guy's a perfect fit in a position in need.
Yeah, if the somewhere in that 10 to 25 range, he's somebody that I would certainly consider at 18 too. And that so there could be a lot of value there with the 18th pick in the draft. My eighth guy is going to be wide receiver Jalen Waddle from Alabama, and I'm typically not a big proponent of drafting 5'10", 180-pound receivers. I think they have a high bust rate. How many John Rosses do you have to see come into the league or Henry Ruggs and realize that you just can't line up and destroy the opposing defensive back with speed? But he has a relationship with Tua as well. And I think on an offense with Mike Gesicki and Devontae Parker, and you're possibly going to add another free agent wide receiver, and it may be a Kenny Galladay or a Corey Davis, another big guy. You need someone with some natural separation skills, and I think Jalen Waddle could be that guy. He's not just a little guy either. I mean, he's 5'10", 182, small, but it's not just that. He can also make plays in traffic for his size, and it's not just speed. He actually glides on the football field. He can easily run away from people, and it doesn't look like he's doing much effort. Number 7 for me, and there is a big drop off from 7 to 8 because I would really consider this guy, maybe not at 3, but in a trade down, and that's tight end Kyle Pitts out of Florida. And he's not really a tight end. He's a wide receiver tight end. He's a freak athlete. He's 6'6", 240 pounds. I'd be hard pressed to see somebody come out of college. I haven't seen a tight end come out of college like this in a long time. TJ Hawkinson went 8th in the draft a while ago. But he doesn't have anywhere close to Pitts' physical skills. He might be a Plexico Burris type wide receiver on the outside. He won the John Mackey Award last year, 770 yards receiving in just 8 football games last year.
Perfect. Well, for me,
So who's number 7 for you?
number 7, you've kind of beat the dead horse on this, and that's Jalen Waddle. A lot of the reasons you said. And then for number 6 for me, I went with Jamar Chase. I think we're going to have a little theme here where we've got several of the same guys mixed up in different order. Jamar Chase sat a year, but was the top receiver in college football the year prior. So he's one of those guys that you see Devontae Smith win the Heisman. Jamar Chase is right up there with him, and you're gonna see a lot of folks as draft day gets closer, shuffling Chase, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Waddle as the number 1 overall receiver in this draft.
Yeah, that's for sure. And the value really is going to be at wide receiver and Kyle Pitts in that 5 to 10 range, like you said. Number 6 for me is going to be Gregory Rousseau, the defensive end out of Miami. You look at Brian Flores and Josh Boyer and the success they've had with these massive players, Emmanuel Agba, Raekwon Davis, and Greg Rousseau is 20 years old, and he was 19 in 2019, and he had what, 19 and a half tackles for loss and 15 and a half sacks. I really wanted to see him play this year for Miami. And if he did, then he could have been a top 3, top 5 pick if he had duplicated his 2019 season. And more importantly, he can move inside and be a very good pass rusher at defensive tackle at that size too. You might be able to get Agba and Gregory Rousseau and, uh, you know, some of these bigger defensive linemen on the field on third down at the same time. So I'd be very excited to see that. So who comes in for you there, Ed? Where are we at now? Number 6,
I'm up.
number
I'm
5.
I'm up to 4. I just did 5 with Jamar Chase.
Gotcha. Okay, so my next guy here is going to be, let's see here. Number 5 is going to be Devontae Smith for me from Alabama, and it's been a long road for him to get to this spot. And last year, I actually liked him more than Jerry Jeudy, who went 15th to Denver, and Henry Ruggs, who went 12th to the Raiders. I like Devontae Smith more, but the leap to him being the 3rd overall pick in the draft, I'm still not there on him, but I can at least understand the pick, and it would be a great weapon. Won the Heisman Trophy this year. Over 110 catches, 1,800 yards, 23 touchdowns, has the relationship with Tua as well. And man, he would complement Gesicki and Devontae Parker with the skill set that he brings to the table. So who's next on your list there?
Number 4 for me is Mr. Kyle Pitts. I know you've already talked about him, but again, he's somebody that I really like in this draft. I almost like him more than I like the wide receivers. I like the fact that he can come in, he can line up in that slot. So you can go 4 wide with him and Gesicki on the field, but you can also shift him in to a traditional tight end spot and have him block in the running game. And then you're going to start seeing Gesicki on the field just as much as he is now, but in that big slot role that he excels at. So the fact that we have Gesicki does not preclude us taking Pitts, and it makes 2 positions better by taking Pitts, putting him on the field with Gesicki out there. I would love this pick if Pitts is there and Miami's in that 6 or 7 range and Micah Parsons is gone. I would love to see them run up to the podium with that card and turn it in to get Pitts on this roster. He is just electric on the field.
You bet. So you're up to number 3.
I am. Mr. Devontae Smith, come on down. I put him on here. He is my number 3. He's Dolphins fans have talked so much about this guy. Everybody's talked so much about this guy. He's got a great relationship with Tua. You can go back and watch highlights from when Tua was at Alabama of the way that these two are on the same page. And he would give Miami a true number 1 receiver opposite Devontae Parker and one that you can move around the formation. It wouldn't hurt me to have Devontae Smith on this roster, even though there's 2 guys I like a little bit better.
You bet. Number 4 for me is going to be Jamar Chase. I know you had him fifth or sixth on your list here.
Yep.
I've got him at number 4, and I think it's a lot of recency bias with Devontae Smith. Well, no, I'm not going to say that. He won the Heisman Trophy. He had 23 touchdowns. He's a great player, has amazing physical skills. Um, I mean, just an amazing season. Jamar Chase, I think people are forgetting how great he was in 2019. I mean, Justin Jefferson had over 1,400 yards receiving for LSU, and he was a clear second fiddle to Jamar Chase in 2019. I compare him to a bigger Debo Samuel, and in the Dolphins offense, yes, they need separation skills, but they also need people who can break tackles a little bit at the receiver spot. And I think Jamar Chase can put on a clinic in that area. Number 3 is going to be Micah Parsons for me. And when we talk about, again, I hate throwing around the word generational skills or generational talent. I know you're giving me the eye on that, but you've got 4 guys that I think are generational players in this draft, and that's why it's so special at their positions. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, Penny Sewell, Micah Parsons, Kyle Pitts. Those 4 guys, I don't think I've seen players at that position come out in quite a while. He can not only fly all over the football field, but he can do it at 6'3", 245 pounds. He can play the edge, and he can, to me, take Kyle Van Noy's role, who's already a good football player, and just take it to the next level for the next several years. One caveat to that is that for an off-ball linebacker to justify a top 3, top 5 pick, he's got to be unbelievable, out of this world. Parsons might be, but that's where he's got to get to there. So yeah, so we're getting up here, Paul. Who are the final 2 guys there on your list?
Well, this hurts me because he's the guy I want most, and I think the guy that makes the most sense. And I've got Micah Parsons really as 1B on this list. That's as close as I can come to making him a 2. Like you said, he can do just about anything on the defensive side of the ball, and he and Basham, who we already talked about a little bit earlier, are the 2 defensive players in this draft that I see something a step above and a step different from some of the other players out there. And with Micah Parsons, not only can he do all those things that you said, but Flores is a guy that likes a defense that creates turnovers. And obviously every coach, every defensive coordinator does. But Flores puts an extra emphasis on this. Josh Boyer puts an extra emphasis on the turnovers. And that's where I think Micah Parsons makes even more sense. He's one of the only guys I've ever seen that can make a solo tackle and get the player solidly wrapped, but yet every time you see that free, if he can get his hand free and keep the guy wrapped for the tackle, it's always fishing for the ball to pull the ball out. Micah Parsons takes his team that excelled at creating turnovers this year and adds at least 5-6 turnovers to the Dolphins defense during the season, which can be good for 2 wins minimum. And he's going to impact the game in other areas as well.
That'd be scary. I mean, with in Parsons, when I look at him on the field, I think number 1, length at 6'3". I mean, that's pretty big for an off-ball linebacker,
It is.
and also they need somebody. The Dolphins, one thing they were missing this year is somebody who can consistently come up on the blitz and absolutely fire off the edge. Now Andrew Van Ginkel can, in that Vince Beagle role, that overhang linebacker spot, he did a great job. Don't get me wrong, but somebody who could really get the quarterback down in and down out, terrified of whether or not this guy is going to fire off the edge or drop back into coverage, and that's what could take this Josh Boyer defense to the next level for the Dolphins.
Yeah, and 2 things I want to address with that real quick. One, having Micah Parsons in the same defense as Jerome Baker could make Jerome Baker more special, because now you've got 2 guys that either one of them can come flying a million miles an hour before you have a chance to adjust in your blocking scheme and just literally have the quarterback on his back just as his eyes raised to look downfield. I mean, we saw at times Jerome Baker being special with the blitz, and if you've got to account for Micah Parsons in that as well, holy hell, that's going to be a fun time. And on top of that, one of the things, and I see this in our chat as well, I know Micah Parsons had some maturity issues like 3 years ago. He's a teenage kid. He had some dumb stuff happen. So did Yeturgos Matos. So did a couple other players on the roster, supposedly, allegedly, whatever you want to call it. They did some dumb stuff as freshmen, sophomores in college. Guess what? I can't think of a person in this chat or myself or Kat, probably you, that didn't do a couple of dumb things at 18, 19 years old. And I'm not going to take one or two
Yeah.
early incidents from being 18, 19 and throw the guy completely under the bus for that.
Right now, unless something jumps off the page, it's not something I'm going to pay a lot of attention to.
Yeah.
If there are maturity issues that come creeping out in the pre-draft, that's one thing. If there is a, you know, an incident like, Jeffrey Simmons back in his high school days that just is glaring, or Joe Mixon, that type of incident, then
There is an incident, an alleged
Micah Parsons
incident.
is. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't even. I haven't even looked very much. I heard there was an incident, but
It was a teammate that accuses him, Yeturgos Matos, and about three other Penn State players of sexual harassment.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah,
That's
so
why
I
he
won't.
was
I
being
won't
hurt.
comment on that. We're judging on the field right
Right.
now, and as of right now, Micah Parsons is one of the consensus top 6 or top 7 players in the draft, and everything else will get figured out, and especially during the interviews. So, Paul, you've got Micah Parsons as your number 2. Who's your number 1?
I hate this because it's a luxury pick to me. It really truly is. But I've got Penei Sewell. He is a very special offensive lineman. Uh, he could help take this offensive line that I'm not as down on as some are. A lot of people have talked at length about how you need to give this guy or that guy a chance because they were a rookie last year. Basically, Miami's offensive line was a rookie. Like 3 offensive linemen were rookies, and the other 2 linemen that started for you were other than Jesse Davis, because really they had 6 guys rotating through the 5 spots this year. The other 2 offensive linemen were free agent signings. It's this was such. I mean, and this was a better offensive line, and it had 3 rookies on it. So I'm not as down as a lot of people, but Penei Sewell is just that special. I don't like using a first-round pick on a left tackle 2 years in a row. I don't like getting 3 starters in the draft and immediately coming back to offensive line in the first round the following year. I don't like all those things. Penei Sewell is the exception to that rule for me.
Yeah, you said it all there. And my last 2 guys here. First of all, Trevor Lawrence is going to be the number 1 player on my draft board. I don't. It's not even worth talking about. He's going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Not worth discussing. I mean, look, if you Trevor Lawrence is in a completely different class of athlete and player. We don't have to spend any more time talking about that. So basically, Penei Sewell is my de facto number one, but he's number 2 overall in my board. And yeah, to me, it strengthens 2 positions on the offensive line, at least. If you have Penei Sewell at left tackle, you now have the ability to slide Austin Jackson into guard, where in my opinion, he's a better fit. Or you can have him play right tackle, which he also did at USC. You can then kick Robert Hunt into right guard. You make the offensive line much better. I think Tua can and will be successful with the Dolphins, but he needs to be able to plant his feet and drive the football. He can't. It's for the same reason the Saints draft a player in the first round every year on the offensive line. But Penei Sewell, just to say that, he's a great left tackle. I think people are even missing the point. In 2019, Penei Sewell at 6'6", 330 pounds, got Heisman Trophy votes, multiple votes. And he was the first one that did since Bryant McKinney and Orlando Pace. The first one that did over the last, since 1995. He was 18 years old for half the year. He's 6'6", 330 pounds, and he's getting bigger. Like, and his offensive line coach at Oregon said that he runs below a 4.9, so he's an incredible athlete. He's a great football player. And taking a look at 2019, PFF had him, and you can say what you want about PFF, like we say every time, but had him as the best offensive lineman they've ever scouted. Physically, he's off the charts. And if you can get somebody like this at 3, that's to me the where you need to go, unless you get a haul to trade down. Maybe somebody will jump up that changes my mind. I don't think that's going to happen. Right now, it's either Penny Sewell at number 3 for me or a giant trade down.
Yeah, it's. I would prefer the trade down option. In all honesty, even if Penei Sewell is on the board, um, it's. I think there's too much talent in this draft that Miami can go after. Um, as far as this one, as far as that goes, you know, you could add a second round pick by sliding a spot or two. You could add possibly a first rounder next year, and really be in that position to keep this thing moving forward.
And that's going to do it for our top 10 board here. So let's go ahead and recap, Paul. Going down our list. So I've got number 1, I've got Trevor Lawrence. Number 2, Penny Sewell. Number 3, Micah Parsons. Number 4, Jamar Chase. Number 5, Devontae Smith. Number 6, Gregory Rousseau. Number 7, Kyle Pitts. Number 8, Jalen Waddle. Number 9, Rashawn Slater. Number 10, Jeremiah Owusu Koromora, the linebacker out of Notre Dame. So if you've got your list in front of you there,
Yep.
why don't you go ahead and recap that there too?
No problem. And number 1, I got Penei Sewell. At 1B, I got Micah Parsons. That's as far as I'm sliding him down, I promise.
Fair enough.
Devontae Smith at 3, Kyle Pitts at 4. Jamar Chase would be 5th on my list. Jalen Waddle 6th. Najee at 7. Basham at 8. And I think I glossed over this, but I had Jeremiah Owusu on there as well. And then Kadarius Toney at 10.
Gotcha. And these projections and these lists are going to change here over the upcoming months. I mean, we got 3.5 months before the draft actually starts. So I'm looking forward to it. And there's nobody I'd rather do it with here with the draft than you, because I know. Oh, shut up. Yeah, see, this is why I don't say anything nice to people. No, I'm just kidding.
Nah, dude, I love this time of year. I really do. I wish we were still playing, but I love the way draft season shapes up. I know we have a great time with this. And really, I'm looking forward to this offseason, man. There is so much possibility, potential, and this is a team that's on the rise, halfway through a rebuild. I can't wait to see what the second half of this rebuild looks like.
And for people that think that I'm negative when it comes to the Dolphins, you're going to be in for a treat here over the next couple of months, because I mean, there's nothing to be negative about. The Dolphins are 10-6 this past year. They have the second youngest team in the league. They have a lot of cap money to spend, and they're good free agents at the positions they need at running back and receiver. They have 4 of the top 50 picks, 2 of the top 18. I'm really looking forward here to this offseason. One other thing too, Paul, as before we leave here, every week we're going to ask a question about our history as Dolphins fans on NFL Draft Day. So, what is? Doesn't matter if it was last year or going back to whenever you were born. What is the happiest you were after a Miami Dolphins draft pick at the time the pick was announced?
So this is going to be a 2-pack and a story to explain. I think I was, God, I'd have to look back at the actual date. But when Miami drafted OJ McDuffie, I was a kid, and I remember basically running around before the draft saying, Miami needs this guy here, talking about OJ, and my dad and my uncle going, the punt returner? I said, yeah, him. He'd be a perfect fit. He'd come and play with Marino. He catches everything, blah, 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 blah. And sure enough, I was happy as all hell when they picked OJ. And then the second one was a very similar situation. Not everybody wanted this. Most people wanted Brady Quinn, who I totally understand. Both of us were wrong if you wanted Brady Quinn, just so you know. I actually wanted Ted Ginn Jr. I thought he was going to be special, and yeah, I actually had the chance to one of the first times I came down to Miami. I sat down and was talking with OJ and Sam about this, and told OJ the story about with my dad and with my uncle, and when he got drafted. And I told him, I said I had the same feeling with Ted Ginn. And then we were talking, and we were like, Ted's still in the league. And then we were talking, and it's I ran into OJ a few years later, and we talked about the same story, and we're like, Ted's still in the league. I mean, Ted had what, a seven.
He was with the Saints a few times, with the Panthers, with the Cardinals. He was with the Bears recently. I don't.
He wasn't what he should have been, but I mean, he continued to make special plays every time he landed somewhere.
Yeah, he was best with the Saints, and
Yeah,
without question, he was a better overall pick than Brady. Brady Quinn never did anything. I mean,
yeah.
he was one of the biggest, first round busts ever. I mean, I think he fell down to 22, and he did for a reason. So on my end, I've got to say, I mean, there are a couple of players, but I've got to say Laramie Tunzel. And look, I don't mean to make this a poor character show here on the Fin side, but I don't think Laramie Tunzel was a poor character fit. Again, and okay, I understand that my feeling was when Laramie Tunzel in the 2016 draft was falling down the draft board, that somebody had it out for him. And in this age of social media, the teams did not know what to do. So the Ravens at 6 took Ronnie Stanley. The Titans at 8 took Jack Conklin. And I thought, is this guy going to fall to 13th in the draft over some marijuana? And when he never actually failed a drug test at Mississippi, like, and he did. And I thought he was the best player for the Dolphins in the 2016 NFL draft. He played left guard in his first year, as we know, because Brandon Albert was there. And I think he was a franchise left tackle. And most importantly, he's the reason the Dolphins have the 3rd pick in the NFL draft this year because of the haul they got from the Texans. So we're going to do this every week, just a little bit of a walk down memory lane and Dolphins history for Paul and I. But other than this here, Paul, we've covered a lot with the draft picks here. Anything else come to mind?
Um, They're not too much. I mean, make sure you guys are liking, make sure you guys are subscribing. Like Kat and I talked about, we're gonna have a ton of content coming up. Make sure you let us know in our comments who you were happiest about that Miami drafted when they drafted them. Outside of that, I mean, we're getting a handful of people talking about the Marx Brothers and the gas mask, and yeah, man. I think I'm good for the night, dude. I'm looking forward to this. I had fun with this one. I had fun making this list. God, I can't wait.
Yeah, me too.
It's like Christmas for 3 months doing this draft coverage.
Yeah,
Even with
and
you.
this is the ultimate Christmas here for me this year because I'm working from home and I've got 3 TVs in front of me. I've got my YouTube channel up, and basically it's on auto run for all the different NFL draft prospects here as we continue to go along. We've got Senior Bowl week coming up. We'll be sure to talk about that here next week. That's going to do it for our breakdown of our top 10 list for the Dolphins as we sit here in mid-January. You can follow Paul and I on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. I'm Brian Cat NFL. Paul is Fanatic_Pick. And if it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side, it is on the Fin side. Solo D, take us home.